Now, sometimes referred to as the pay-as-you-consume tax, the value-added tax is one of the most important taxes in the world. It forms most of our daily financial transactions, and in most countries, it is the largest single tax source for governments. On our show today, we focus on this very important tax and how the government plans to maximize its potential. I also have on the show today a guest anchor, the executive chairman of Nigeria's Federal Inland Revenue Service, Mr. Tunde Fowler. Thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thanks for having me on the show.
It's a pleasure to also have you here as well. Now, Tunde, you're very passionate about this particular tax, and surprisingly, its rate seems to be the lowest in West Africa. I mean, at just 5%. Why do you think the VAT can provide 40% of Nigeria's non-oil revenue target?
Well, just like you said earlier on, it's a very important tax. It's actually the fastest growing tax type in Africa. And basically, the rate in Nigeria is low. However, the level of compliance is equally low. And it will be unfair for us to increase the rate of VAT when we don't have the majority of people paying and remitting VAT. First of all, we should have a 99.9% level of compliance. And then based on our activities and the services rendered on which VAT is charged, we'll now have a better idea of how much tax we should receive from that tax type. We project that we should be able to get 2 trillion, which is almost a 300% increase from what we usually get from VAT in Nigeria.
So it's safe to say at the moment, the focus really isn't on increasing the percentage of VAT. It's actually more on actually increasing or shoring up the numbers in terms of those who actually do pay the VAT.
Those who pay, and to ensure remittance of money collected from consumers.
Well, I guess it's time for us to just learn more about this all-important tax. Introduced in 1993, value-added tax, also known as pay-as-you-consume tax, is a cost borne by the consumer on goods and services listed as VATable. In Nigeria, the VAT rate stands at 5%, the lowest rate in West Africa.
In fact, our national tax policy emphasizes that there should be a shift from direct taxation to indirect taxation. And of course, it is the kind of tax that cuts across everybody. It has every Nigerian who purchases goods or service is liable to pay VAT. So there is a huge potential for huge revenue for government if the VAT law is fully implemented.
VAT's potential cannot be overemphasized, as the FIRS plans to raise 2 trillion naira from VAT. The question is whether it is possible to achieve this feat.
It's not going to happen this year because, you know, we're currently doing about 800 billion. You won't get from 800 billion to 2 trillion in 1 year. It won't happen. It will take time to get people to change their attitude, their mindset, and to buy into it. And a lot of the people who are not compliant are not the biggest organizations. Some big organizations don't comply, by the way, but they're mostly informal sector, medium-sized companies, small organizations, and it will take time. So I think that's probably a target you get to in another 2 years, and then getting beyond 2 trillion would be a medium to long-term strategy.
A lot of people don't know anything about VAT. A lot of the people who should know better and who should comply, and that includes professionals, it includes lawyers, it includes accountants, also don't even charge VAT. Where you do get charged VAT, airlines, which you can see your VAT charge, your telecommunications and others, it's not always clear that the VAT is actually paid back into the government coffers at all. In fact, a lot of people use it as a private buffer for running their businesses. And it's even worse when you get into the informal or semi-formal sectors. So when you go to a hotel, you're invariably charged your 5% VAT, but I can guarantee you that almost none of that VAT goes anywhere near government, which it should. So it requires a lot more explanation, and people need to get more on board with the VAT.
The problem is compounded by the perceived lack of clarity on what is VATable and what isn't.
It has to do with taxpayer education. But they're not even too difficult a subject for you to understand. The goods that are exempt are basically basic food items, agricultural implements, medical, pharmaceuticals, books, and educational materials, then people who are in the free trade zone and all that. So these things are quite clear. But the area where I'm concerned is that the VAT law, left a lot of things to chance, to guess. For example, what is a basic food item?
Now, many people hide under those ambiguities not to comply. And you also find things like imported services. All over the world, nobody exempts VAT on imported services, because what that means is you're saying that foreigners should have an advantage over your local manufacturer and service providers. So what you should do is, when I import services into Nigeria, I should be able to pay VAT on it. But because the person that is exporting to Nigeria does not do business in Nigeria, in some cases, especially for services, you make the local recipient to self-account for the VAT. Now, in our VAT law, that does not exist.
The lack of information over the years on this all-important tax is a major problem the FIRS will have to tackle in order to achieve its mandate.
Well, I don't ask for VAT receipt, but I used to see, VAT on the teller that is being issued.
No, I don't ask them because I've not heard of it.
Well, actually, clients are aware about the VAT, but they are very unwilling and reluctant paying the VAT, for the simple reason that they are not satisfied with the way the VAT is being distributed and utilized by the federal government.
Are you aware what the VAT is?
VAT? I don't.
How many percentage is that?
I don't really know, because I don't take my time to check it.
According to the head of strategic tax and compliance at Dangote Group, Titi Layo for Wakon, the message has to be simplified.
Number one, the awareness on some of these things is not only to say it on the TV, but we need to drive it down to what they understand. We cannot just assume that everybody understands the jingles on the TV, but we need to do this tax education going to the grassroots. Right from the grassroots, letting them understand what tax is. Tax is not different from what the Hausas call shuka. It's something that's been there. But it's just for us to know that, look, we know these things in our system, this is what it is, and this is how we want it to apply, and then take it from the grassroots and start coming up.
Traders and service providers' reluctance to charge VAT is also an issue. They argue that the inclusion of VAT will push their prices up, and they could lose customers to their competition who is not charging VAT. They are calling for enforcement and compliance.
Two wrongs never make a right. I think it's lawlessness for anybody to boldly say to government, unless everybody else is doing it, I'm not going to do it. But it's also the second part to it. On the flip side, it's also the weak enforcement mechanism that we have. One, we have laws that we don't fully implement. Sometimes when we do implement them, we're not consistent. And we don't seem to have the moral justification to ask people to pay taxes. But generally, what should happen is whoever you're able to identify who is dealing in vatable goods and services has to be charging VAT. And if they don't, let them face the consequences. Once you do that consistently, you find everybody gets into the tax net and nobody gets an advantage for not charging VAT over their competitors.
As the FIRS's new drive to increase VAT compliance gains momentum, the question remains, will there be amnesty for those who never remitted VAT owing to ignorance or lack of enforcement?
We don't even have that power. If you are owing a kobo, you better go and pay it. We don't have the power to even remit taxes. So every kobo in arrears, we are going out after everyone. Over the last 1 month, I remember, we wrote letters to over 1,000 companies and individuals who are in this category of people we are talking about. And they are responding with speed.
Amnesties don't really work. Generally, people will always advocate an amnesty. But if I know that I've been paying my tax and you were let off by not paying yours, what do you think I'm going to do next time? I'm going to wait for the next amnesty to come. So I'll start to owe you money.
And I actually think that the VAT law is due for a complete overhaul. It's far behind time. To make us achieve 2 trillion, improve the awareness and everything, we need a new VAT law to address so many things, including what we mentioned, as well as the digital economy, which in 1993 was something insignificant, but today it's massive.
After all said and done, there are people who insist a 99% compliance on VAT can be achieved within a very short time if citizens get value for value-added taxes paid to the government.
A pretty tough situation there, if you ask me. I mean, for a country where taxation hasn't been the norm for decades, one wonders how easy this campaign will be.
Well, certainly it's not going to be easy, but it's certainly doable. First of all, what we have done in FIRS is to expand the tax net. We've added close to 700,000 corporate accounts. And you've got to remember that VAT is payable and charged by both corporate and individuals. Second of all, we're going to introduce a VAT certificate that shows that the companies have been registered and are entitled to collect VAT, and will hold those companies accountable in terms of the remittance. Third of all, we're going to have comprehensive audits of most of the corporate accounts within the country and check on all tax types, from CIT to withholding tax and also to VAT. Recently, we've also appointed a national VAT coordinator, and his job is to drill all the way down to make sure that both the corporate and the individuals pay and remit taxes as they collect them. Thirdly, we've got to realize that 85% of the VAT collected is distributed among the state governments. So we've asked for their cooperation to ensure that even they, as state governments, remit their own VAT, and they remit it monthly, and to ensure that when they're going around, to make sure that even taxpayers within their own jurisdictions also remit VAT and withholding tax. And I think that once we have done that, we would have adequately covered most taxpayers, both in the corporate and also individuals that are expected to collect, pay and remit VAT. And I think that will be a good starting point.
Now, where's education in all of this? Because there are those who can actually also claim ignorance and really who should be paying VAT and how much they should even charge in the first place. What is the Federal Inland Revenue Service doing to address this and ensure that Nigerians understand what's coming their way?
Well, we are talking about information, education. We're on all mass media, including this program. We're on radio in various languages, in Hausa, Yoruba, Pidgin, Queen's English. So it cuts across all. And we also have a team called FIT, which is Federal Engagement and Enlightenment Tax Teams, that go around the nation informing and teaching people about different taxes, helping them fill out forms to ensure that remittances are made timely.
Right then. After the break, we'll take a look at some of these initiatives geared to boost VAT collection across Nigeria. Just stay with us.
Welcome back.
And if you're just joining us, you're watching Nigeria Going Beyond Oil. I still have here with me the Executive Chairman of Nigeria's Federal Inland Revenue Service, Mr. Tunde Fowler, and the focus remains on value-added taxes. Now, so my question is, now how do you plan to turn around the current narrative around the collection base of VAT in Nigeria?
Well, if you look at what we have done in terms of information, in terms of education, in terms of convenience of paying these taxes, we are now left with one option, and that's the enforcement. We will prosecute, we will distrain organizations, and we will enforce the remittance of all these taxes. And I think that is where we are right now. And we should understand, the public should understand that these taxes that you pay is what government uses to provide services for you. So if anyone pays a tax, especially VAT, it's expected that that VAT is remitted to government so government can serve you better. We also have to realize that VAT especially is a tax paid on services and consumption. So it is people who have the ability to pay or to buy or to consume that pay this tax. It's not a tax that is a burden on the needy, but it's a tax that is taken from people who can afford to pay that tax.
Now, prosecution, that's a very interesting word you mentioned there. For most Nigerians, they believe that tax offenders here in Nigeria actually get more of a slap on the wrist or their businesses being closed for a while. So I believe prosecution is something many will look out for, but how serious is the FIRS going to be in driving this through?
Very serious. When you turn on the TV, listen to the radio, and you hear that former leaders have been sent to prison for tax evasion, pop stars, etc., have been sent to prison for tax evasion, it's now time for us to take it seriously in Nigeria, and we will.
All right then. Well, let us find out some of the initiatives the FIRS will be employing to shore up some of these numbers.
For the Federal Inland Revenue Service, there is no turning back on the targeted minimum contribution of 2 trillion naira from value-added tax to Nigeria's non-oil revenue. With a number of challenges casting shadows on the possibility, ranging from the current low compliance rates, weak enforcement of tax laws, low level of awareness, amongst others, the FIRS insists these challenges are surmountable. To further demonstrate VAT's level of importance, a national coordinator has been appointed to give special attention to the task ahead.
It's actually a very big tax, but it is doable with all effort being put in place by Federal Inland Revenue Service and the commitment of the staff of the service to ensure that a fair play is entrenched in the administration of taxes, and then government is also making people believe that whatever they pay as tax is not going to be mismanaged. That will encourage people to pay, and that is the reason why emphasis is being placed on VAT, because you cannot rely on income tax again. For companies are recording losses, and the cash flow in the economy is also very tight. But as long as we continue to consume, it will be easier to pay VAT.
As we speak, we exchange information with the Customs Service. So we are able to know those that are importing, what they are importing, and the tax element, that's the VAT element of what they are importing. This is very, very useful because it enables us to carry out accurate assessments in case taxpayers are underfiling or underreporting.
The current VAT compliance rate is only 10%, and the possibility of achieving 99% is mind-boggling.
Well, one of the reasons we believe strongly so is the fact that, one, the compliance level at the moment is still very low. So that gives room and opportunity for us to widen the tax net so that we can bring more people to the tax net. Two is because of the ease of collection. The moment we bring people to understand that they need to pay VAT, and the more vendors that are collecting VAT, the easier it is for us to rake in what we expect. Thirdly is the fact that we're also leveraging on technology. In the time past, we wait for vendors to collect and then remit to us. Some will collect, they will not remit, some will not even collect at all. But with the leveraging on technology now, we are doing auto VAT collect in various sectors, which make it impossible for these vendors to evade the payment of VAT, such that the moment they sell their commodities, they sell their wares, the VAT is automatically deducted and is remitted automatically to the account of the Federation. So with these and our continued sensitization of the public, we are positive that we can make the 2 trillion target.
The agency is taking it one step at a time. Top of its list is tackling taxpayers' perceived ignorance of the payment and remittance of value-added taxes. By using the electronic media through massive campaigns, FIRS is reaching out to Nigerians in its rural and urban cities. This is one of many steps taken to widen its tax net and also include the informal sector. The Federal Engagement and Enlightenment Tax Team, set up by the FIRS, is also educating taxpayers nationwide.
We went on for some months, 1 to 3 months, to enlighten the public, to make them understand the need for them to pay this type of tax, VAT particularly. And after those 3 months, we now said, okay, we went to the next stage of compliance. What we did was also, we started pasting stickers on those non-compliant taxpayers all over Abuja and other cities that I control or is under my jurisdiction. We went and pasted stickers, then gave them a time limit of 14 days as allowed by law, within which to respond to our request for payment of these outstanding taxes that they have. And so far, that is where we are. After 14 days, what we intend to do is to ensure that we go on proper enforcement.
While the focus is on capturing mostly the informal sector, tax consultant Mark Abani believes the message should also be directed at professional bodies, some of whom are guilty of not remitting VAT, and should also be the channel through which other businesses are captured.
The services are generally given by professionals. Professionals should know better. So it's very important that it's actively driven amongst the professionals, and the professional organizations also start to make the compliance with VAT as one of their own conditions for retaining your professional membership. So that's one way in which outside the direct government enterprise organizations, professional groups could actually start to help drive that along. Also, larger professional groups. So for instance, for hotels, some hotels charge it, other hotels don't. Now, the hotels that charge it are therefore at an economic disadvantage against those who don't charge it, because what it means is they're charging their customers more, so they are not able to compete on a level playing ground with the others who don't pay it. So again, that needs to be dealt with. And one of the ways of dealing with that one is actually by working with, say, the Association of Hotel Owners.
Leveraging on technology, the FIRS aims to ease the process of tracking payment and remittance of value-added taxes.
We are also collaborating with the Office of the Accountant General, the custodian of the GIFMIS, Government Integrated Financial Management Information System, which is an accounting system for government. So with this, we are able to see transactions pertaining to contracts awarded by government. Every contract awarded has a potential tax element with respect to withholding tax as well as the value-added tax. So this has introduced a lot of transparency.
In the informal space, steps are being taken to ensure VAT is added and paid with little or no resistance from consumers and business owners.
Now we are developing some technology such that the POS that is being used by various vendors will be such that will be configured to enable deduction of VAT and remit that to the federal government. So with this kind of technology being in place, this is how we intend to widen the tax net. So basically, what we intend to leverage on is technology, because we can't go after individuals as such. Well, I'm also aware that there's a legislation that is going to be in place very shortly. And part of that legislation may include the fact that we can, enforce the usage of these specially configured POS.
The FRS needs to get very creative about tax matters, and this is done in so many places around the world. Something like doing a raffle, so that when I go into a shop, to a service provider, I'll buy anything and ensure that my receipt has VAT, because I know I can, enter into a raffle draw and win a car, win a TV from government. That way, you create the awareness, and you also make the people the police for you, because they then demand for VAT receipt.
There are still doubts on how successful these initiatives will be if weak enforcement remains a challenge.
The law is there. There are some administrative machinery that must be in place, and it doesn't come cheap. The tax authority must be well funded, And they must also have the liberty to recruit those who can help them do the job.
Education on this all-important tax continues in order to reduce confrontation and possible litigations that may arise during the course of collection. The most important is for all taxpayers to familiarize themselves with what the law expects of them and to be on the same page as the FIRS.
Very interesting. However, I would just like to restate that VAT is a very important tax. We expect everyone who's supposed to pay VAT to pay. We also expect people who have collected the VAT to remit it as when due, which is the 21st of each month. We also would like all people who are watching to realize that Nigeria is our country, it's the only country we have. Government requires money to provide service, to provide infrastructure, and we on our own part have a very important role to ensure that taxes are paid and collected and remitted to the government. And also, we've got to realize that the three tiers of government, the federal government, the state government, and the local government are funded by these taxes. So please, let's play our part. Thank you and God bless.
Do I get the feeling you just ended the show?
I think so.
What happens to my line?
I guess I must have said it too.
Well, I guess there's nothing else to say. It's really been very interesting having you on the show. My name is Onyi Sunday, and I had the pleasure of having Mr. Tunde Fala, the Executive Chairman of FIRS, on the show as well with me. And that's it on this episode of the show. Thank you so much for watching. See you again next time.